My name is Megan Fusak. My area of emphasis is human behavioral science. And once I graduate with that, I would like to get my master's in sociology to become a licensed therapist. So that's my goal. The topic of my paper is the different ways that adolescents grieve after the loss of a loved one, whether that's healthy or unhealthily. And this topic is very important to me because about 5 years ago, I unexpectedly lost my father to a heart attack. And so I would love to help other people who are going through a similar situation. This topic really hits home with me, and it's very personal. So that's one reason why I chose this topic. The problem here is that some individuals grieve healthily, while others take a different path that is damaging to themselves and don't have a healthy grieving process. It is important to address this issue because the people who don't grieve healthy and they choose to grieve unhealthy need to know that there is appropriate help and that it's available to them. For example, therapists and social support groups, etc. The two disciplines that I chose to support my topic of adolescence grieving is sociology and psychology. These are the two most relevant because they both study different aspects of a human during their grieving process. Studying grief through the sociology perspective offers lots of information of the individual's external life. Examples of how their family, friends, school, and community all impact the individual differently, whether that is negatively or positively. An example of this would be an individual, so here's an adolescent and their parent is grieving through the loss as well, and if they choose to maybe partake in substance abuse or unhealthy forms of grieving, this would negatively affect the child versus if the adult was being proactive and going to see a counselor and reaching out to the community and things like that, that would have a positive effect on the child. So things like that surrounding the child's external life really does affect them as an individual and socializes their patterns of behavior. The second discipline is psychology, and this examines the internal aspects that one faces after the loss of a loved one. It studies the emotional constraints an individual goes through and how to process all these new emotions. An example of this could be meeting with a therapist one-on-one so that during those one-on-one interactions, the therapist can directly help the individual at hand and really get to know that individual, how they're grieving, what is going, instead of the group meetings, which would be more on the sociology aspect of it. So that's kind of the difference. But the both insights are different because they study a human from two different angles. Studying this issue through the lens of two disciplines enriched my understanding of the problem. I learned that the impacts of the death of a loved one comes in waves and affects each individual uniquely. If I had only studied this problem from one discipline, my concept of the problem would be much narrower. It'd be more broad, generic. I wouldn't have this grade of depth of knowledge that I now know from studying it from multiple disciplines versus one. For example, if I had only studied it through the psychology discipline alone, I would have totally missed out the social world and how other people like the family, friends, and community influence an individual during the grieving process, while sociology alone wouldn't catch the mental internal struggles that one faces with their emotions and how to deal and cope with all those emotions. So this problem of grieving, either healthy or unhealthy for adolescents, is a very complex problem and should definitely be studied through more than one discipline. So I'm very grateful that I was able to do that and dive in more and learn more about, because like I personally did experience this, but I didn't really know the scientific like behind it, why, you know, people either fall into the healthy category or the unhealthy category. So this was a great first step for me in studying this, and I hope to further my knowledge in it so that I can eventually help others in the future.